going through a series of auspicious days. We had one session beginning on chapter 6 at the beginning of Chaitra Navratri. Then we had last week, and today being celebrated Hanuman Jayanti. So an auspicious day yet again. So today we are taking up. Could we mute all the participants? I seem to have some noise coming my way.
Yes, sir.
So, as we had discussed in the beginning of chapter 6, there are three sections of this chapter. The initial section talks about the large construction of the universe, the divine power, the manifestation of the divine power in various planes in this universe. All of that is the first section, the cosmology, if you will, according to Sri Aurobindo. The second section, which we will be beginning today, is a description of the four powers of the mother. And the third section is somewhat of our own preparation and the condition for transformation, which is the goal of integral yoga. So these are the three sections. We completed one section over a period of 2 talks, and we begin today one of the most favorite sections of this entire book for the devotees of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. It is called the Four Powers. Just as each Siddhanta, each Parampara has its own important gods and goddesses. In the case of Vaishnava Tantra, we talk about Dashavatara. In the case of Devi-related Parampara, we talked about Dashamahavidyas, Ashtamatrukas, Navdurgas, and so on. There are sadhanas associated with each, and together they give us a particular story, a particular framework, a particular understanding of how the universe operates. When we speak of the four powers, Sri Aurobindo, of course, describes here the four powers of the Divine Mother, Maheshwari, Mahakali, Mahalakshmi, and Mahasaraswati. Knowledge, wisdom and knowledge, power, beauty and harmony, and perfection. These are the four powers, as we will see. It is also interesting to note that Sri Aurobindo describes, even in his social philosophy, how in the evolution of humanity, wisdom played an important role for a certain period of time. Then the reign of kings and power and manifestation in that. And then the evolution of beauty and wealth, the business empires, and so on and so forth, and the service aspect. He describes that in the evolution of humanity, these four powers have manifested in a certain way. Going back to the Chaturvarnya that is described in Sanatana Dharma, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, he does not in any way categorize them as superior versus inferior, whereas he brings them together as complementary aspects for the nature to work: wisdom, strength, harmony, and perfection. Knowledge, power, wealth, and service. He relates these four aspects to the Chaturvarnya. And of course, Sri Aurobindo emphasizes that while in our social aspect, they have become calcified and become rigid, and castes are defined by birth, Sri Aurobindo subscribes to the original theory. Going back to the temperament of the individual is the classification. And also within in each individual, all the four aspects have to manifest. So this is kind of the a background of the four powers, and then we begin our study. Four great aspects of the mother, four of her leading powers and personalities have stood out in front in her guidance of this universe and in her dealings with the terrestrial plane. Four great aspects of the mother, four of her leading powers and personalities. One of the things we realize when we study Sri Aurobindo in depth or read many volumes of Sri Aurobindo, every word he places has a certain meaning and emphasis. So he uses two words here, powers and personalities. So is it the four powers or is it the four personalities? What is the difference between a power and a personality? We need to understand it since we are doing a study of the book. We know what the four powers and personality means. All of us will give the names. But the idea is, let us understand a little more detail. Personality is a conscious being. It is a conscious being, self-contained in some ways, able to make decisions in some ways, look at a certain perceived scenario and give a certain response consciously and deliberately, thoughtfully. This is a personality. And a personality may choose to operate many powers. A power of compassion, a power of Raudra, a power of harmony. Many powers can be used by a personality. And even more, there is another word called forces. A force is something that is devoid of consciousness. It exists, but a consciousness may use that force. So, for example, if we take the natural forces, the Panchabhutas, Agni, we all use, Agni is a power, Agni is a force, and we can use it in some way. Similarly, if you look at gravity, gravity is a force, and we use it in a particular way. So a force does not necessarily have an intelligent consciousness behind it. A power may have a certain element of conscious existence or a consciousness using it, but not necessarily fully conscious. But personality is something that is fully conscious, aware, and able to work in the world. So that is the subtle distinction between powers and personalities. So Sri Aurobindo says that these four aspects, these four powers and personalities have stood out in front in her guidance of the universe and in her dealings with the terrestrial plane. We saw earlier how there are powers that are descending and they are manifesting in the earth and they're taking humanity forward. So these four powers are helping humanity go forward. And then Sri Aurobindo gives an introduction to the four powers. One is her personality of calm wideness and comprehending wisdom and tranquil benignity and inexhaustible compassion and sovereign and surpassing majesty and all-ruling greatness. Another embodies her power of splendid strength and irresistible passion, her warrior mood, her overwhelming will, her impetuous swiftness and world-shaking force. A third is vivid and sweet and wonderful, with her deep secret of beauty and harmony and fine rhythm, her intricate and subtle opulence, her compelling attraction and captivating grace. Third is vivid and sweet and wonderful, with her deep secret of beauty and harmony and fine rhythm, her intricate and subtle opulence, her compelling attraction and captivating grace. The fourth is equipped with her close and profound capacity of intimate knowledge and careful, flawless work and quiet and exact perfection in all things. Wisdom, strength, harmony, perfection are their several attributes. And it is these powers that they bring with them into the world, manifest in a human disguise in their vibhutis, and shall found in the divine degree of their ascension in those who can open their earthly nature to the direct and living influence of the Mother. To the four, we give the four great names: Maheshwari, Mahakali, Mahalakshmi, Mahasaraswati. Remember that this was written in 1920s at a time when Sri Aurobindo was introducing the Mother to the world. Perhaps it is this section of the book more than any other that made sadhaks refer to the book, the Mother, as Sri Aurobindo's Matru Upanishad. And we are entering into the heart of this particular book now. There are many sadhaks over the decades who have had the vision of these four powers in the Sri Aurobindo ashram. Some of them have experienced them during meditation. Some of them have seen them in meditations. Some of them have seen these powers around the Mother. And Mother has confirmed that these forces and powers were indeed with her. Preeti describes in one place where one day when she was standing with the Mother, she herself asked, Mother, are you this power? And that particular form materialized before her in the Mother. So it is with bhakti and adoration that we can approach them, that these four powers may bless us. When we take up sadhana, there are many ways in which devotees and disciples and general seekers relate to the higher powers. Of course, half the world doesn't bother whether gods exist or don't exist, or gurus exist or don't exist. They are more kao pios, moj karo so jao. That is a lot of the world. Then there are those who believe in gods, but they choose to stay at their own level of consciousness at which they were born. And they believe in an equation with God that helps satisfy life around ego. Bhagwan ji, mere bete ko pass kara do. Bhagwan ji, mera business acha chala do. Let my child pass these exams. Let my father, let my business go well. All of these kind of things. These are transactional relationship. I do this for you, you do this for me. Then there is a slightly higher level where saying, no, we should give a little more space to gods. They actually are good and, they are nice people. We should try to give a little more. And, try to do a meditation or try to do big pujas or big homas or big things, but fundamentally with the same attribute. Kamya, fulfillment of my general tendencies in life. I don't mean harm to anybody, of course. And we are not talking of those. Those are also another category of people who can use these powers or manifest some of these powers to help overcome obstacles or beat up people. We are not going there. But even among those who come to the spiritual path, many are still in the web of kamya, desire fulfillment to a certain degree. The desire can be at a lower level or a higher level, but nevertheless desire fulfillment. Beyond that is a category of devotees and disciples who open to the divine force and desire that they be transformed. Their own being and their own consciousness is molded in the form of the higher gods. This is where serious spiritual seeking begins. That I don't call my guru or God to help me wade through life, but actually I say I have no particular outcome in mind. I just want to receive, and you do whatever is best and change me in a way that I can come closer to you. This is where the real spiritual journey begins. And we will see further how this relates to the discussion we are having. Talking about the four powers, Sri Aurobindo says elsewhere, in a sense, the four powers of the mother may be called, because of their origin, her emanations, just as the gods may be called emanations of the divine. But these four powers have a more permanent and fixed character. They are at once independent beings allowed their play by the Adya Shakti, and yet portions of the mother, the Mahashakti. The Adya Shakti, the transcendental power, Mahashakti, the universal power, the one universal power, and these are individual personalities. The Mahashakti, and she can either manifest through them as separate beings, or draw them together as her own various personalities and hold them in herself. Sometimes draw them back, sometimes at play according to her will. Further, Sri Aurobindo says, these four powers are cosmic godheads, permanent in the world play. They stand among the greater cosmic godheads to whom allusion is made when it is said that the mother is the Mahashakti of the triple universe and stands there above the gods. In Durga Saptashati, there is an instance where Shumbha and Nishumbha, towards the last chapters, they come to battle with the mother, and one of them, when he comes to fight with the mother, he sees all these other powers around her. And he tells her, I have come to fight you, ask these people to go away. You are fighting with 10 of your supporting queens or kings or whatever. Then it is said that the Divine Mother laughs and he tells him, hey Murkha, they are all me. They are not separate from me. And then he sees all those powers go back into her. And here is Mother Durga in all her mighty form. The emanations come and they can be withdrawn as the requirement is. The mother also was asked, Mother, are these four aspects independent of one another? The mother said, to a certain extent, but not totally. There is an independence which at times seems total, but at the same time, there is a very close link. There is the central consciousness, the Mahashakti. And mother goes on to give an example, saying sometimes Kali may want to come and do something, and yet the Mahashakti may prevent her from doing so because the time is not right yet. And here is someone who writes to Sri Aurobindo. Yesterday night, I saw Maheshwari above my head, Mahakali in my vital being, and Mahalakshmi seated in my heart. Each one radiated a different light from her body. And then I saw a few subtle powers descending in my being. It was a beautiful vision that someone had. And then Sri Aurobindo writes his remarks. Maheshwari's natural place is in the higher consciousness above the mind, for she is the wideness and largeness and wisdom of the divine. Mahakali acts most naturally through the higher vital, which is the instrument of her force and power. Mahalakshmi acts through the heart. In your case at present, she is acting through the mind also, though that is less usual. Ordinary, it is Mahasaraswati that works through the mind. So, we are seeing how these four powers are simultaneously active in the sadhana of integral yoga. The sentence I would like to read again. She shall found in the divine degree of their ascension in those who can open their earthly nature to the direct and living influence of the mother. So when I talked about various categories of sadhaks, some of them at a higher stage opening to the divine, this is what I mean. As we open, the vibrant and direct influence of this aspect or of the mother herself can suddenly imbue our consciousness. Over a period of time, once that breakthrough happens, our consciousness more and more is remolded in the form of the higher consciousness. First, a certain peace and calmness become natural to our being. A certain harmony, a certain quietness. And then, if we are opening to Maheshwari, then probably a certain vastness. All of that can happen. And the way to invoke these powers is very simple. Read the passages, one or more, as they appeal to you, or each of them alternately, one day the first, one day the second. I encourage particularly youngsters to read Mahasaraswati. Saraswati is normally worshipped by a lot of parents who have children in school, but Mahasaraswati is even more than that. Till the age of 30, we are working on our own personality, not only the knowledge, but even our own faculties, our capacity of concentration, our capacity of doing work properly, the diligence, our capacity of learning new skills. All of these are her domain. So it is not only students who are reading school books, but even young people who are looking forward to a life of 30, 40 productive years. This is the time in the 20s to read Mahasaraswati again and again. She will give an eye for perfection, the capacity for detail, the ability to be patient and work on something again and again. And of course, other powers also play a major role in one's career development. But Mahasaraswati can be the linchpin to our career development. She can be a big help. So it is not just the traditional Saraswati of education. This is about all the skills we need to grow as a person. That is broadly the brief guideline I can mention here. So today now we begin Maheshwari. Maheshwari is about wisdom, wideness, vastness. Cosmic consciousness is a phrase that many people use in sadhana, where we become a big, wider, we identify with the universal consciousness. That is the domain of Maheshwari. Supramental mother, that is another phrase that is used for Maheshwari. She is somebody who has the capacity to open us to the supramental light, the supramental truths. Expanding our personality, removing narrowness. Because honestly speaking, many of us suffer from narrowness of outlook. It doesn't manifest in the social context, but it manifests inside of us. Very few of us have the width. Our narrowness is basically a result of the socio-economic conditions of our upbringing. It is not good or bad, it's just an observation. Many of us have narrowness that is inbuilt into us that seems reasonable. And breaking that mold and expanding our consciousness is the job of Maheshwari. So in any particular way, if you find a certain limitation in us, that is the domain where Maheshwari can help us. So further, Maheshwari, Imperial Maheshwari, is seated in the wideness above the thinking mind and will, and sublimates and greatens them into wisdom and largeness, or floods them with a splendor beyond them. For she is the mighty and wise one, who opens us to the supramental infinities, cosmic vastness, to the grandeur of the supreme light, to a treasure house of miraculous knowledge, to the measureless movements of the mother's eternal forces. So Maheshwari being on the higher side, she has the contact with the higher worlds also. That is where the measureless movements of the mother's eternal forces comes in. All the infinitudes that we talked about in the previous talks, Maheshwari has some correspondence and, she is in touch with those areas. Tranquil is she and wonderful and great and calm forever. Nothing can move her because all wisdom is in her. Nothing is hidden from her that she chooses to know. She comprehends all things and all beings and their nature and what moves them and the law of the world and its times and how all was and is and must be. Very vast, very wide, very high level. Wisdom is what she manifests. And going by Sri Aurobindo's and Mother's definition of what wisdom is the vision of truth in its essence and of its application in the manifestation. It is not only knowing what is right here, but doing what is right in this world. Wisdom is the vision of truth in its essence and of its application in its manifestation. Wisdom is essentially the power of spirit, and it can arise only with the spiritual consciousness. So this is not knowledge for knowledge's sake. This is knowledge for Atma's sake. Somewhere, Mother also says, wisdom can be acquired through union with the divine consciousness. Wisdom looks behind the veil and sees. Reason divides, fixes details, and contrasts them, but wisdom unifies. It marries the contrasts in a single harmony. Wisdom looks behind the veil of false appearances and sees the reality behind it. So one, communion with the divine, knowing what is truth, realizing what is dharma, and then implementing it in the right way. That is wisdom. Reading further, a strength is in her that meets everything and masters, and none can prevail in the end against her vast and intangible wisdom and high, tranquil power. Equal, patient, unalterable in her will, she deals with men according to their nature, and with things and happenings according to their force and the truth that is in them. She deals with men according to their nature and with things and happenings according to their force. In other words, Maheshwari does not put a rigid law in place. It is not an iron law. It is something that takes into account the forces and it takes into account the nature of man. And she puts her principles at work in consonance with them in some way, taking into account the realities. Partiality, she has none, but she follows the decrees of the Supreme, and some she raises up, and some she casts down or puts away from her into the darkness. To the wise, she gives a greater and more luminous wisdom. Those that have the vision, she admits to her counsels. On the hostile, she imposes the consequence of their hostility. The ignorance and foolish, she leads according to their blindness. In each man, she answers and handles different elements of his nature according to their need and the urge and the return they call for, and puts on them the required pressure or leaves them to their cherished liberty to prosper in the ways of the ignorance or to perish. Yet above all, she is above all bound by nothing, attached to nothing in the universe. So this is a long paragraph, but it covers several themes that are interrelated. She follows the decrees of the Supreme. Some she raises up and some she casts down. To the wise, she gives a greater and more luminous wisdom. To those that have the vision, she admits to her counsels. She admits to her counsels means she gives guidance, provided we have the patrata, the preparedness and the capacity. In even the traditional pujas that we do, or the traditional tapasyas that we do, there is a definition of adhikari. Adhikari is not one who can command and own. That is the more recent distortion. Adhikari is the one who has prepared to receive. And how has he become that adhikari? Through his preparation of getting there. We have to till the soil so that when the grace of rain comes, or when the rain of grace comes, we are able to benefit from it. We discussed that earlier when we discussed effort and grace. Here also, if we are wise, and if we have the vision, and if we have the purity, then she gives us her guidance. But if we are limited to our earthly nature, if we choose to remain narrow, if we choose to remain petty, if we do not cultivate the high and lofty nature, if we are happy to lead our life, Bhagavan ne bahut kuch de diya, is janam mein aise chal jayega to bahut hai. If I can manage this life the way I have come so far, I'm happy, I don't need to worry. If that is our mentality, then we are not able to benefit from the growth that Maheshwari will bestow on us. On the hostile, she imposes the consequence of their hostility. The ignorance and foolish, she leads according to their blindness. Even though these words are very strong and we feel that everybody else belongs to that definition and not us, the truth of the matter is all of these elements we have inside of us hidden somewhere. When we come to spiritual path, we should realize it. What one person may say, I am being careful, the other person may say he is being narrow. What one person may define as being prudent in life, the other person may say you are actually somebody who is like a stone who is not affected by other people and circumstances around you. Happens, no? We are all grown-up people. Imagine someone who is in dire need of some money for emergency health or family requirement. As it is, when he approaches somebody for help in money, that poor man is half dead. And he will approach people whom he thinks can help. Now here the other person says, well, this fellow may never return the money to me. Why should I loan? Even if I have enough. So each one has their perspective. But these definitions can be applied to us when we feel we are being right and the other person views us differently. The ignorant and foolish, she leads according to their blindness. We just have to be aware that where we have behaved like this in our life and try to change it. So each element of our nature, she is not somebody who batters us. She is somebody who works with us. And sometimes she leaves them to their cherished liberty to prosper in the ways of the ignorance or to perish. There are people who get everything and yet they want more. They are unwilling to accept dharma or change their nature towards dharma. We all have this question. Why do good things happen to bad people? This is a very common question. We know they are not great people, but there is so much wealth being showered on them. Somewhere the Divine Mother tries to help them come out of that ignorance, but when they are too stubborn, this is Maheshwari. She will say, okay, I will let you go. Tumhara time bhi aayega. Your time will come sometime. Then I will try to see what I can do for you. She is not attached. She doesn't say, oh, this is my child, I have to correct him. No. If one is stubborn about indulgence in ignorance, she lets us live in that ignorance. Yet, she has more than any other the heart of the universal mother. For her compassion is endless and inexhaustible. All are to her eyes her children and portions of the one. Even the Asura, the Rakshasa, and the Pisacha, those that are revolted and hostile. So she keeps a compassionate eye, even when she gives us enough freedom to destroy ourselves. We have seen these words, Rakshasa, Pisacha, Asura. Pisacha is the lowest of the lower vital behavior, clinginess. Absolute attachment to things in some ways that defies any logic or any sensibility. There are beings like that, but they don't have mental faculty. They are just like vacuum cleaners, feeding off energies. Then there are Rakshasas, which come from the middle vital plane, Sri Aurobindo says. They have a powerful vital, but the mind is not evolved. Crude mind that is used to justify their indulgence. How can I deceive and grab something? A person who behaves like that is a Rakshasa. We have this mistaken idea of Rakshasa as only existing in Amar Chitrakada books. There are many people around us who are walking and talking Rakshasas. Ego-based, egocentric, satisfaction of my body and pleasure, continuously looking after the welfare of my own, absolutely unsympathetic of anything that falls beyond the circle of I, me, and myself and my family, only engaging in interchange where there is a necessity or a benefit involved. Not compassionate, not philanthropic in the true sense of the word, all of that is Rakshasa. Asura, on the other hand, has mental faculties but uses them for destruction and satisfaction. Going further, even her rejections are only a postponements. So here, I said earlier that even if somebody wants to indulge, she lets them indulge but keeps an eye on them. Even her rejections are only a postponements. Even her punishments are a grace. See, I'll give you a very interesting example. In our stories of Puranas, in many places, you find a Rishi goes somewhere, somebody behaves badly with him, and the Rishi gives a sharp. Right? We have seen this again and again and again, right? If somebody goes somewhere, then the Rishi says, you are going to become a Rakshasa in Dandakaranya. Why? What is this explanation behind it? After all, Rishi is supposed to be the manifestation of composure. Rishi is supposed to have achieved his power through a lot of tapasya. When you curse somebody, some of your power goes away. You know that. Then why does a Rishi do this? There are two things to understand. First is, just as we are beings with very mixed consciousness, there are higher levels of consciousness, there are lower levels of consciousness. But in our social and moral behavior, we try to keep the higher consciousness, keeping a little bit of a poking nature that doesn't allow the lower consciousness to come out. Now, when there are beings like this in other parts of the world, and the lower consciousness comes out, and it is very strong and it needs to manifest, then some aparadha happens, some mistake happens. So what does a Rishi do? The Rishi looks at this chap and he says, this fellow is unfit to be at this higher plane because the consciousness is not there yet. He is suffering. He is always wrestling with his consciousness, trying to keep the higher consciousness outside and lower consciousness inside. And that is how he is looking like a demigod. Let me do one thing. Let me give him an opportunity to exhaust this lower nature. Let me give him conditions to exhaust his lower nature. So he says, you go and fall on the earth and you become a Rakshasa and live there for 100 years. The idea is your vasanas are very deep rooted. You exhaust them. Let them, you belong to them. I'll create the conditions that are in line with your consciousness. That is what the Rishi is saying. Your consciousness is not suitable for heaven. So I will give you something of a lower order. Go there and live there. After some many years of living there, you will have a regret. You will say, what have I done? How have I become like this? Is this filthy intelligence the reason for my existence? Am I supposed to live here? No. And somewhere in that indulgence and that thing, a small call arises to the divine. Oh, divine, come and liberate me from this dirty nature, from this filthy nature, from this narrow nature. Then your nature gets prepared on the inside and then you evolve. And then वो शाप का विमोचन बताते हैं, the way to exit the शाप. This is the fundamental theory of शाप. So even when there is an asura or a rakshasa or a pisacha, the divine mother gives him an opportunity to exhaust those movements in a suitable way. Okay. And then you leave that person for some time and gradually the person evolves. Even her rejections are only a postponement. Even her punishments are a grace. But her compassion does not blind her wisdom or turn her action from the course decreed. For the truth of the things is her one concern, knowledge her center of power, and to build our soul and nature into the divine truth, her mission and her labor. So we saw how punishments give us an opportunity to exhaust our strong desires and vasanas and karma and then evolve. So it is kind of grace. There is another aspect. Maheshwari is also known by other names. Sri Aurobindo himself gives examples. Maheshwari herself has many forms. In her lesser manifestations, Durga, Uma, Parvati, Chandi, Sri Aurobindo himself is describing it. And somewhere the mother speaks of Maheshwari's light. As we saw earlier, sadhaks had experiences of Maheshwari. The mother describes Maheshwari's light as white light. A white light, but it is not transparent, it is not crystalline. It's absolutely white, very bright, and a white light that looks like solid, So it's like milky white, not just transparent white like a diamond white. That is the light of creation, Maheshwari's light. Okay. And then somebody has asked a question here. Going back to the earlier description, Maheshwari lays down the large lines of world forces. We saw that description earlier. Somebody asks, what are these large lines of world forces? The mother answers, it means she makes the plan of what the world ought to be. She lays down the large lines of the plan of what the world should be, of the universe. She has a vision of the whole, the global creations. Instead of seeing details, she sees the totality of things. She lays down the large lines of the plan, what the creation should be, towards what it ought to advance, then what the results will be. She has this universal vision. So that is how she looks at it. We talked of expansion. One of the things that narrows our own human consciousness is time and space. When we are in a hurry and we are running to catch up with something, often our consciousness shrinks. Remember this, because many of us in our working life are running from meeting to meeting. Arey, time nahi hai, time nahi hai, time nahi hai. Time nahi hai narrows the consciousness. I have all the time in the world is the way we should look at things and arrange ourselves. Somebody else asked the mother, develop the cosmic consciousness. How should we do it? Because Maheshwari is about cosmic consciousness. Mother says, first you should understand what your consciousness is. Begin to feel your consciousness. This is the first step. Know what your consciousness is. Then, the cosmic consciousness means that instead of feeling that one is altogether separate, isolated being, different from all others, one feels that he is only a part of the immense whole and in relation with the total reality, with the whole totality. We should be in relation with the whole totality, receiving movements and vibrations of all others and transmitting it to all others, our vibrations. One has exactly the impression of an immense whole moving within itself. That is cosmic consciousness. So first become aware that you are a point of universal immensity. In this universal immensity, we are one point. This is a good way to expand our consciousness, doing meditations of this nature. Sitting in meditation and feeling the room that is around us, then expanding beyond the room, expanding to the clouds, visualizing the space. These are all methods of meditation of expanding one's consciousness. Mother also says the easiest way to make your consciousness vast is to identify something which is vast. She has given exercises where one lies down on the terrace and looks at the sky and tries to feel the vastness of the night sky. Feel oneself floating in that vastness and expanding into that vastness. Similarly, visualizing the ocean that is in front of you, meditating there and feeling that vastness of the ocean and identifying our consciousness with it. These are all ways to expand our consciousness and grow. And we are able to do that if we are able to do these exercises on a regular basis. Okay, yeah. So, knowledge and truth, these are the powers that Mother Maheshwari manifests. And our sadhana of Mother Maheshwari would be about this. So we have covered the one power today, and we will take up the next power, Mahakali, in the next session that we will be doing. I had one small announcement. During the coming weeks, there is a bit of unavoidable travel that is overlapping with this particular time slot. Next week, around this time, I will be in the Bombay airport. We have a small meeting in Bombay. Some friends are coming from Pondicherry. In fact, I might as well share here that Sri Aurobindo Society is working on creating a film on Sri Aurobindo, a 20-minute animated film on Sri Aurobindo's life that covers the pre-Pondicherry period. So it goes particularly with his England period, Gujarat period, and then Bengal period. There is a 20-minute film that we are working on together. We have Archanaji on this call. She is also a part of that team. Manoj Pavitran, Shiv Kumar from Pondicherry, all of us are working. Next week, we have a meeting with the studio that is working on it. They wanted us to come and discuss more and share some experiences. So it is a meeting that I cannot opt out of. So you will have to excuse me. And on the same token, I might tell you, if you haven't yet contributed to the film, please do so, because certainly we need all the help we can get. There's a fundraising that's been going on that, and it is coming out beautifully. I can tell you that much. So due to this reason, next week, we will not be having a class. And the week after this, I will actually be traveling to Pondicherry, but I'm working with Nimeshji to see if we can have the session maybe an hour later or something. We will keep you updated in the WhatsApp group. Nimesh bhai, is that okay?
We can certainly have a session at 4:30, provided all indicate.
Sorry, there was an echo. Could you repeat it?
I'm running through my two systems parallelly, so it is my own echo. I'm on mobile as well as on my computer. So sorry for that. We can certainly have a session at 4:30.
We will try to do that on the 4th. So next week on the 13th, we will not have a session. On the 20th, we will have a session. Archana ji is sharing the link where you can see the animation videos, animation details rather, not the videos, but the details of the animation film on Sri Aurobindo. So that is what it is. Once again, thank you very much for joining, and we have a few minutes in case there are any questions or any comments.
Please raise your hand for unmuting me.
I am happy to see Jasmine ji from Bombay, a good friend who has been working with us on many programs over the years.
I think let's have a 1 minute of careful silence before we end today's talk. 1 minute silence.